All right, back on the Young Turks. And now we're going to talk to David Sirota. He's the author of The Hostile Takeover and the Uprising. David, you were quoted in the Wall Street Journal today, and they were kind of gloating, saying, ha, the White House listens to Glenn Beck and, for example, firing Van Jones more than they listen to progressives like David Sirota or anyone else, for that matter, on the left hand of the spectrum. One, do you think that's accurate?
I think it's not fully accurate, but I think there's some truth there. I mean, I think that the White House political team is much more afraid of Republicans and the right-wing political lynch mob, as epitomized by Glenn Beck, than they are in working very closely with progressives. I think you see that not just in the firing of Van Jones, who was targeted by that lynch mob, but on policy. I mean, you see the White House with the 60 votes in the Senate, with a huge majority in the House, trying to water down the health care bill to appease Republicans. You see them trying to water down the climate change bill to appease Republicans. You see them escalating the war in Iraq as Karl Rove cheers that on. So this is a White House. What's strange about it is that President Obama explicitly campaigned against quote-unquote triangulation, against this kind of politics, and yet the White House seems to be behaving with precisely that kind of triangulative politics in mind.
So, David, we got to go to the heart of the matter. How do we get them to change it? Because, we just had Roger Hickey on. He's with Campaign for America's Future, and he's on the steering committee of HCAN, and he says, yeah, you're right, we need more pressure from the left, right? And a lot of people agree that we need more pressure from the left. But what exactly does it mean to have more pressure from the left? And then how uncomfortable are we really going to make people? Because it's one thing to say it in theory, but when you actually do it, a lot of people freak out.
Well, I think it's pretty clear right now in the next couple of months what that means. What it means is getting on the health care debate as many progressive members of Congress to take a pledge to not vote for a health care bill unless it has a public option in it, a real public option, not a watered-down one, not one with triggers. I think it's the same thing on every legislative issue. I think this is what the White House is looking at a mathematical formula that I think is old, but it may be validated. The old formula is that in order to pass anything, you need to appease conservative Democrats and Republicans. That's been the case because the progressive Democrats in the House and Senate haven't played the kind of hardball that the conservatives have played. They haven't said, we want this, this, and this, or we will vote against any bill. If they start doing that, they will change the legislative math. If the president knows he cannot pass a health care bill through one of the chambers of Congress without a public option, then he will have to negotiate. He will have to come to the table on that issue. And so for all of us, what that means is, it's hard to pressure a president, but it's much easier to pressure individual members of Congress because they're up for election, especially in the House, they're up for election every 2 years. So that, I think, is where we focus our pressure.
And we just had Representative Schakowsky on earlier on the show, and she said, look, I want to remain positive, and I want to vote yes for a strong bill with a strong public option. When I asked her, yes, but will you vote no if it has a trigger and doesn't have a strong public option? And she said there's no point in having that discussion. We need to remain positive. But you're saying, of course there's a point to that discussion, and that point is if you don't make that threat, that you're going to get run over.
If you don't not only make that threat, if you don't live by that threat. I mean, that is quite literally how the Blue Dogs, how the New Democrats have controlled so much of the agenda for the last decade. So I reject the idea that it's being negative to draw lines in the sand that are crystal clear. I don't think that's being negative. I think getting that kind of pledge is how to change the legislative dynamic. I mean, here's the thing. Presidents, politicians, they don't do anything unless they're forced to do it. At the end of the health care debate, Barack Obama will have to choose. Can he pass a bill through one chamber without a public option? Or can he pass a bill through another chamber and he needs to have a public option? It's up to us to create that dynamic. If we don't create that dynamic and he looks at the Senate and House and says, look, in the Senate, I got the conservatives saying they won't vote for anything without a public option. And in the House, I got House Democrats saying that they won't vote for it without a public option, but I think I can roll them. Whoever he thinks he can roll is where he will end up going. So it's not negative, it's just creating the legislative dynamic.
And it's absolute reality. That's exactly right. Whoever he thinks he can roll. Now, David, in the very little amount of time we have left, I got to ask you, so how do you do it? How do you exert pressure on those congressmen to say, no, under no circumstance, we vote no if it doesn't have a public option?
The way to do it is that whenever anybody contacts their member of Congress, they have to ask the question in a very succinct, ironclad, concrete measure. You need to ask, will you vote against a bill without a public option? It has to be crystal clear. When I talked to my member of Congress out here in Denver, she left herself a little bit of wiggle room, but I at least tried to get her on the record with a concrete statement. So every time somebody talks to their member of Congress, it's got to be a concrete ask, not a general ask, a concrete ask. And the more people who do that, the more pressure there will be.
All right, one final quick question in 30 seconds. Is our principal problem Rahm Emanuel?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think Rahm Emanuel is operating off the old formula. He thinks that the progressives will ultimately roll over and the conservatives won't. I mean, I'm not a fan of Rahm Emanuel, but that's his formula because that's the way it's been. Our problem is actually getting enough progressives to be willing to really go to the wall. That's the problem. And I love the progressives. I'm a fan of them, but we need to get them to go to the wall.
All right, David Sirota, author of The Hostile Takeover and the Uprising. Thank you for joining us on the Outdoors.
Thank you.